This is me taking the political compass test. I actually recorded a previous video of this, but it didn't save for some reason. It only saved up until like 11 minutes and 32 seconds out of like the 30 minutes or so that I recorded it. So I'm going to just have short answers for this one so it doesn't get cut off because of like storage or whatever reason it got cut. So this is a test that I've taken before many times, and I'm somewhat interested to see where I'll place now. Probably not too much different, but yeah, we'll see. I'm wearing my Tupac shirt, so you can already guess my quadrant. I have my epic map in the background, so that's something. All right, let's get into it. So, if economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. Of course, I strongly agree with that, because I'm for anti-corporate power. But also, an answer for this can be further explained with the question later on of what's best for the biggest corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. So that will go into detail about this, and yeah, two propositions kind of linked. I always support my country whether it's right or wrong. Strongly disagree. If your country's doing something wrong, you have to be against that. You can't just say, "Oh well, it's my country, so I'm still going to support it anyway." Like, yeah. That's pretty much what it comes down to for me. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I don't know. I think people interpret this question like in many different ways. You could interpret it as like nationalism or patriotism. How I interpret it, I really don't know. Because I'm really stuck between like I mean, it is a political compass test, but yeah. I'll just say I disagree, but not strongly, because um, I think nationalism, especially for like what I see around my culture, like in the West, I think it's kind of silly. Racism may superior qualities compared to other races. Strongly disagree. Only reason I ever agreed with that in the past was because I looked at it like, well, every race has a special ability, you know? Like, black people might tend to be taller, more masculine, things like that. Um, that's how I used to look at it, but now now I kind of view it as more of like, just a, like, destined thing for race. Almost like, sort of, like a fascist rhetoric, a little bit. So going off of that interpretation, which I think most people would go off of, I'm going to go strongly disagree. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I kind of disagree with that. I can see like scenarios where it would be true, like say World War II, with the West and the Soviets against the Axis, or say like if you and a weaker enemy are both being exploited by like a larger enemy, then the weaker enemy becomes your friend, at least for like the short term. And yeah, so I guess like in some situations, but generally I disagree. I don't think this should be um, like 100% true, because of course it's not just black and white. You know, there's different sides conflicting. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It's not like a bipolar thing. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. I don't like it when people use this as a loophole to like excuse military actions that defy international law, especially if they're like massively unethical. So strongly disagree with that. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I think these two things are kind of bound to go together. But I think to an extent, yeah, people have to be like appropriate and also not spread misinformation. So I agree with that. Okay. People are ultimately more divided by class and nationality. I wish. Um, but that's not always the way it is for some people. I hope like in the future that will kind of be seen as like the main issue, class. So I think I'm going to just agree with that. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I used to strongly agree with this one because you can still be productive being unemployed, and I still kind of agree with it. I would rather be unemployed and not be able to afford anything than be employed and not be able to afford anything. So, yeah. I think inflation is more important to control. Yes. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Of course. Theodore Roosevelt, but especially this is like a foreign thing. Like you can look at say like what plantations like in Algeria, them being exploited of their resources through what is virtually slave labor, like exploiting Nigeria for oil, exploiting Central American countries for fruits like bananas, stuff like that. For each according to their ability, for each according to their need is a fundamentally good idea. Marx said that, and yeah, I agree. Especially as I've gotten more of like a self-realization. Like if you like pursue what's like the ability like that you have, that also fits into your identity, and you need more of that to succeed. Like kind of a poor example, but I'm just trying to think of a semi-humorous one, I guess. Like think of like Ninja, his abilities like Fortnite streaming. He needs more Fortnite streaming. Maybe that's not as important as other jobs, you could say, or at least it's beneficial. But you know what I mean, right? Not everyone's a streamer like Ninja, though. Most people aren't. The freer the market, the freer the people. Strongly disagree with that. The freer the market is just the freer the market. That doesn't necessarily apply to a social situation where people are more free as a result of it. It's a sad reflection on our society how that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled bread a consumer product. I think maybe sad might be kind of dramatic, but yeah, I agree with that. And you could just drink like tap water, filtered, like me. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. I think land is best exchanged through like materialistic value. Like say your land has like a well or something, and you want to like trade it off to like a family member then, who also wants the well. Then you can do that instead of like having to sell it and just raising prices more and more. Especially when there's a risk where like some people or people who might even be interested in the land or might be able to take care of it better, where they can't keep up because they can't economically afford the land in the first place to buy it. I do think it's like a more diplomatic and competent strategy of gaining land compared to some other methods, but generally I agree. I think there's also better ways. It's regrettable how many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. Of course. People waste money on silly things all the time, especially billionaires. Just look at how Elon Musk fell off. Spending money on different things now. You got X, you got making flamethrowers and unnecessary investments, things like that, just silly things. Basic example, I'm more so being petty with that one, but you can look into Bernie Sanders. You can also look into like wealth inequality gaps, like over time and everything, constantly increasing. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Again, it's kind of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend thing. Like in some scenarios, I can see it. Like say like a country's trading with a weaker country, and they're trying to empower themselves to block out like a foreign competitor who maybe has like a monopoly. In a scenario like that, yeah, but for something like tariffs, no. Because in order to properly enforce tariffs, which I already think are dumb, but in order to like properly enforce them, you need like a complex web of strategies. You can't just raise prices on other nations for imports because they'll just raise prices on you. So, yeah, I disagree with that. But I can see scenarios where it would work. Only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver profit to shareholders. Strongly agree, yeah. Nothing else is really necessary. The rich are too highly taxed. Strongly disagree. The rich are not highly taxed. Again, wealth inequality is still rising. Billionaires are still billionaires. If you're gonna have billionaires, at least have it be within the state where they can actually have like the efforts to spend money on things that are productive. Like at least in China, not saying it's socially great, but economically, at least like for their billionaires, like they have to contribute to the state and broadly the nation in some way with innovations and progressive technology. But yeah, like that's pretty much the limit to it. Even then, I don't think billionaires should exist. So no, they're not too highly taxed. They're too highly not taxed. Those with the ability to pay should have higher access to standards of medical care. I think it's legitimately unethical to strongly agree with this. No. Usually people who need medical care would be people who are... Oh, sorry. Photos by accident. Get out of here. Usually people who would need more medical care would be people who are poor or people who get sick more, right? So, like, basing that as an economic issue, like, basing it off pay is, like, silly, and it also just, like, lets more people become sick repeatedly instead of getting the proper care that they need. Not to mention the helplessness those people would feel not being able to get it, so, yeah, strongly disagree with that one. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Back then I would have strongly agreed. Now I kind of agree. I think there's like an extent to that, where it still applies, even though I'm against like state power and intervention and everything, because of course I'm like socially leftist, more so now than the past, where I wasn't really, because there's still like a limit for like how you can question things. Like you can question whatever you want. That's great. You know, you can learn more about things by questioning them, but you can't make things up, especially like for say like lying about the vaccine, saying it kills more people than like outside of like an isolated incident or two, or saying that like they have microchips, like things like that, spreading conspiracies especially. No, that's not great. So agree, but not strongly agree though. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Yes. Theodore Roosevelt. Okay, I think most people should agree with that, really, even if you're like a capitalist. Abortion when a woman's life is not threatened should always be illegal. Strongly disagree. Even if it's not to the degree of a woman's life being threatened. If there's rape, incest, hell, and accidental teen pregnancy, etc., etc., those are still cases. I think anyone who wants to get an abortion would do so with great reason. And hell, it's better to have them more open because it's better to do it like earlier than later. So yeah, I strongly disagree with that. All authority should be questioned. There you go. Strongly agree. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Would have strongly agreed with this, but I think like defensively, yeah. Like if someone like beats you up, you're gonna want to beat them up back, and in your defense, that's fine. You know, like I think that's way more justifiable than beating someone up just because. But is it ethical? No, it's still not ethical. It doesn't change that fact. Which is why I'm against it. So I disagree, but I don't strongly disagree because I can get why people would. Yeah. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. It is important to preserve those things, but I think there can be aspects of like the state as it is, or people who can just like properly be expected to preserve those things, not just the general public. I don't think people should have to pay for those things, so Yeah, I agree. School should not make classroom attendance compulsory. I hate school. Strongly agree. It's not just because in high school. I'm lonely. Kind of sucks. Been going on for too long now, and it's not looking great. Um, but even then, like you want people to go there to learn and whatever. You want people to have that connection. School is important. It's the easily the most important part of like youth development. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Outside of that, I really don't think it should be compulsory. I think it should be encouraged, and like people should have a reason to go to school, but I don't think people should be forced into it, especially if there's clearly an issue going on. All people have their rights, but it's better for all of us that certain people keep to their own kind. Strongly disagree. The interpretation that I get in my head doesn't see that very lightly, so there you go. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Strongly disagree. That's child abuse. Okay, it's just child abuse with like slight justification, which even then is poor justification because it's better to communicate with your kids rather than abuse them. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Strongly agree. Not always great though. You should be encouraged to be open to your parents, and that's horrible and sad if you can't be open with your parents. But yeah, you should always um, like if you are comfortable with keeping a secret and there's not really too much consequence to it, then like yeah, you should be able to keep secrets from your parents, especially if it's like a personal thing. Possessing marijuana for a person, yeah, of course. Drugs should be economically publicized and only regulated by like doctors and things. Okay. People should absolutely not go to jail, let alone prison, for or prison would be worse. I mean, for like cannabis possession offenses. Prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. I think a lot of youth don't get jobs because there's not enough of a focus on this, really. Like, I think schools kind of have, like, a poor, um, they're kind of poor at, like, personally intervening in, like, a student's life in, like, a positive manner. So I agree with that, but there's also much, much more to school aside from that, like friends, learning, having the freedom to, like, go to school, be personally elevated, all those things. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Mm. Um, I think those disabilities should be mitigated as much as possible, but um, yeah, I slightly disagree. I don't think it's like never possible, but I don't strongly disagree because if you have an inheritable disability that can't be solved, and you want to have more children that might get those diseases, then that's a problem, or are likely to get those. Most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Strongly disagree. There's way more than just that, and that's also kind of a toxic way of looking at development. There are no savage and civilized peoples, only different cultures. I agree. Counter argument though, there's also like an ethical standpoint again with like what's in your defense versus what's ethical. Like there are obviously unethical practices in like cultures around the world which are like most people could judge that they're at least not great and shouldn't be there. So yeah, like um like child marriage is a big one, of course. Human sacrifice, it's not really a thing anymore, but um things like those, um, they're still unethical and shouldn't be encouraged, even if they're parts of cultures, because broadly those do harm people. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society support. Um, Strongly disagree, because I think people should still have society support even if they don't work. Um, at least like at a baseline, you could have social security, and outside of that, um, well, people should be given like the things that they need to start working and become useful to society rather than just themselves. but it's not just definitive as in like they should have no support whatsoever if like they refuse to work. When you're in trouble, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I know authoritarians tend to put like strongly agree, but even back when I was more socially conservative, I like strongly disagreed with this still because I was like, no, you need to like spend your time like fighting those problems and conquering them and like being forceful and things like that. But even now, like, being cheerful, like it's better to be more positive, but I think a lot of things have really slipped in the cracks for me, at least personally. So I think it's just better to confront those things head on. And of course, like in a political sense, yeah, disagree. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within a new country. I don't think people should be defined by that for their lives. Like, they can never be fully integrated. Kind of a toxic way of seeing it. Strongly disagree, yeah. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. There you go. No, of course not. That's just like what's most beneficial for corporations, which are intrinsically greedy and self-serving, because that's the competition that exists with corporations. So, no broadcasting institution, however independent of its content, should receive public funding. I disagree with that. I think people should be able to fund what they want. Of course, there should be a cap on it. Like, billionaires can't just like fund whatever parties would represent them the most. And I'm not using that as a petty example. Like, the people who would manipulate this the most are billionaires, of course. Like, Bill Gates just can't like fund the hell out of CNN. Just a random example, not trying to be politically biased with that, but you know, just trying to think of diverse examples for things. Okay. Next, civil liberties being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Agree. At least if you were like talking like maybe in the 2000s, the most recent example I could think of. I didn't live for most of the 2000s, so I wouldn't know exactly, but at least like putting myself like in the mindset, I'd probably vote agree on this. Not much else I can say about it though. Significant advantage of a one-party state. Avoids arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. Well, the democratic political system would also have like more voices that would help progress. So I disagree, but I don't strongly disagree because I can see scenarios where it would like be the opposite. Like the Soviet Union, for example, wasn't democratic, unfortunately, but it was extremely competent in a lot of ways. Like economically, it was a superpower, went from nothing to being a superpower. So there's like that as an example. But I just think generally it's better to have a democratic system where people can compare ideas and look for the best ones rather than just like choosing whatever ideas and like that at the expense of like a democracy. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Strongly disagree. Surveillance state, kind of a feared thing among people, and also like spying, things like that. And I think it can be like for worse purposes as well. Yeah, that's basically it. Death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Strongly disagree. The death penalty shouldn't exist. Plus, it's expensive and it's unethical. In a civilized society, one must have people. No. True anarchism has barely ever been tried. So yeah. There's also many ways in which a hierarchical society could be uncivilized. So yeah, an anarchistic, is that a word? I think so. Society is not intrinsically uncivilized, even though people might be led to believe that. Abstract art that doesn't represent it, no, that's kind of the point of abstract art, dude. Not all the time, but often. Criminal justice punishment should be more important than strongly disagree. Especially because if you punish them and brutalize them, they might just be worse. So not only on a personal level is it negative, it might even be negative on like a societal level. It's a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. I disagree, but I don't strongly disagree. I think prisons should be reformed. They're like absolutely nasty, and I think everyone should always have the opportunity to be reformed. But I don't think everyone is going to take that opportunity. Like, unfortunately, there's just some people who are too ruthless or just don't care. Like first degree murderers, people who commit like aggravated sexual assault, aggravated assault, like that kind of stuff. I don't think those people would ever change. Because, yeah, there's some pretty messed up people. But I don't think the argument of this should be avoided entirely. Business person, manufacturer more important than the writer and the artist. In economic sense, yeah, I agree. Would have strongly agreed with that in the past. I kind of agree now, and I think like it's unfortunate that a lot of manufacturers are exploited or don't really enjoy life that much. But yeah, I mean that's not to say they're like always better as people, because there's more to life than just work. But they're generally more productive than like a writer or an artist, at least directly. Others may have careers, but their first duties to be homemakers. Strongly disagree. Might be more convenient in purpose because like females have breasts and they can like feed children, whatever. And most of them tend to be more inclined to like stay at home. Like if there's a baby, say. Well, not like say, like that would be the most prominent example here. But that's pretty much where it starts and ends. And even then, like that's a purpose, not a function. Like there could be a stay-at-home father too, say if that's more convenient, or if like the mother has a higher paying job, or she's more inclined to work. You know, like it's the function that really matters. The purpose is just there as like a what would it be, like just a fundamental benefit, I guess. Yeah. And outside of that, no, of course not. They can have careers for sure. They deserve no more or less fulfillment than anyone else does. Almost all politicians promise economic. This is a new question actually, and yeah, I strongly agree. And if you deny this because you're a climate denier, just know that you're affecting the whole world, and you are objectively wrong and you suck. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. It doesn't necessarily indicate immaturity to oppose authority, especially for pretty much any example throughout history. You know, like more reformative, you can think of diplomacy with Britain to get Canada independent, where I live. More extreme, like a revolution, like the American Revolution against Britain for the United States' independence of the United States. More reformist as in like civil rights movements, more extreme as in like say the Russian Revolution. Those aren't necessarily like, would you call Martin Luther King immature? Yeah, I strongly disagree. Okay, these ones will be a breeze. Okay then. Astrology accurately explains many things. Keep in mind, this is astrology, not astronomy. If it was astronomy, I would strongly agree because it's literally anything but Earth, but this is astrology, which is often like prevalent in like spiritual things and religion. And yeah, that's it. Strongly disagree. No use really. You cannot be moral without being religious. Religion is inherently like more socially authoritarian, and atheism is not. Okay, because you are in an institution, you are inclined to believe in a higher power, and religions are often forces that force their views on others and believe in extreme things. Not all the time, and to different extents too. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And especially because it's like definitive, like you cannot be moral without being religious. Strongly disagree. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. No, I don't want feel-good charities based on how much rich people feel like giving that day. I want Social Security because, like, these are people. They're not just, like, sources of feel-good cringiness. Okay? Strongly disagree. Get out of here. Some people are naturally unlucky. I've always strongly disagreed with this. No. No way. That's almost like a socially Darwinist view of looking at things. And I really don't think that's fair for pretty much anyone, really. It's important that my child's school instills religious values. No school should be as diverse as possible. Get to know different people. You know, learn about different people too, so you're not socially secluded and cringy and weird like me. Next page. Sex outside of marriage is usually immoral. I used to be stuck on this one because I never realized if it was talking about like sex outside of marriage when you're already married, or sex outside of marriage as in like you're not married yet but you're having sex. In which case, if it's the latter, I'd obviously strongly disagree. Weighing out between those two possibilities, so I'm just gonna say strongly disagree. Also, there's polygamy throughout history, very prevalent. People have been having sex with many different people in many different ways for many years. Being unfaithful is what's wrong, not having sex with others inherently, if you're in a relationship, okay? Those two things strongly correlate, though, especially in the culture that we have now, so, yeah. That's pretty much all you can say for simplifying it. Same-sex couple in a stable love, yeah, of course. Strongly agree. Yeah, because especially like you can already argue that the further you go back, even though again you have the purpose of like mother, father, children, like there's no nuclear families really, and hell, there's different people adopting children too, like medieval times, like aunts, uncles, things like that, Vikings, communal living, Romans, Greeks, etc. Like the further you go back, the less you have of like a nuclear style of family that was mostly prevalent in like the 1950s. And even that's just an expanded version of this. Like this is just like a gay couple, which you can't have children, and there's children who don't have parents, so it works out perfectly. So yeah. And no less or more important than like a regular relationship, well, traditional one. With children. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Porn depicting consenting adults should be legal. Yeah, of course. Even if you disagree with it, you shouldn't make it illegal. I think enforcing that would also be difficult, and people would be more inclined to find other ways of getting those resources, which would not be great. And also, just making this illegal is just a poor idea. It's better to regulate it and block out stuff that's actually harmful, instead of just like general porn, which like everyone's fine with. Well, it should be. Oh wait, hold on, I slipped up on the last part there. Everyone should be fine with it. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Surveillance state, right? I strongly disagree. Even if it's like weird or makes you uncomfortable, don't worry about it. Because it benefits them and has no effect on you. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Strongly disagree. Because people can. So, these days, openness about sex has gone too far. Disagree. To some extent, yeah. Like culturally xenogenders and making like personalities out of that sort of thing is pretty silly. Aside from that, like there's a lot of people who are still restricted from talking about their sex, especially like across the world. And like it's more complicated than just like straights and gays, you know. Okay. This is not going to be a surprising result. Alright, yeah, there's my results. So I am approximately, what would this be? I don't know, like an eco-socialist maybe? I don't know, I'm almost like TJ. Amazing atheist. Alright, well, there's my most recent updated results, so there you go. If you like that, Like the video if you didn't. Well, maybe you'll like some of my other videos. Don't have to worry about my politics if you don't want to. But yeah, that's it. Peace.